Hi, Alex here from Nintu, and in this video, I'm going to take you through how to correctly use and find the different utility classes for the Nintu framework. And together, we're going to build a new features section based on a section that we had on one of our landing pages. So, first thing that we're going to need for this is a cheat sheet or a resource of all of the possible Tailwind classes. Now, you can use the one that we've built or another one that I recommend from NerdCave, which is the one that I'll use for the demo in this video. So you can find that by heading over to nerdcave.com/tailwind-cheat-sheet. And on here, you'll find all of the possible Tailwind utility classes. Everything from your background colors, your padding, pretty much any way that you want to style your website, will use a utility class to do so. Benefit of using utility classes opposed to the brick styling is that the utility classes will be passed through the worker and the JIT or just-in-time engine, and then stripped out of any additional CSS so that only what is required will ever load on your page, keeping things super snappy. So we've got our cheat sheet. We're now going to have a look at the component that we want to build. So heading over to a recent landing page, there's a component that we designed a little bit customly here, which is essentially a features element, 2 rows of 3 features. And you can see here, when we toggle between light and dark mode, there's also some slight changes to how things are styled. So I'm going to start off by finding a component that is as close as possible to the one that I want to design. I found one over on our new components. Looks somewhat similar, but everything is centered. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this one. So just click on the copy button, and then jumping into the builder, I'm going to paste my component. From here, if I compare the two, I can see that one is aligned all to the left. Icons are red, and the box around the icons is squared instead of circle. Also see, if I compare the two, that one has slightly smaller, bolder headings, and the other one, which is this one here, has slightly larger headings. So I want to change those as well. And then we'll just go through any other changes that we want to potentially make. So back into my builder, first thing I'm going to do is look at my background color. And if I select the section element, I can see that I've got background-n-50, which is a little bit of an off-white neutral background. And then in dark mode, I've got BG-N-900, which is the darkest possible background. Now I'm quite happy with these two, so I'm going to leave them as they are. I'm going to start off with looking at this grid here, the different elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the button because we don't need buttons on this component that we're building. And I'm going to start by changing the layout of each of the list items. Now you can see here, we've got flex, flex-col, items-center, gap-4. That's what's all contained within the one feature. Now I want to get rid of the items-center. You can see it's just made the top one full width. I'm going to assume at this point that it's because somewhere there is a text class that is also centering my text. So have a look just above that. No text class here. How about on the container? See, on my container, I've got a class that makes the text center. So I'm going to get rid of that, but I want my heading to still be centered for my intro. So I'm going to go over to my intro, apply the center class here, text-center. Now I'm going to start styling one of the features before I duplicate them. So this first one here, I want the items to be all aligned to the left or to the start. So if I go back over to my cheat sheet, where might I find that? So I know that it is in, let's just search for start, see what it comes up with. Okay, I've got grid column start end, it's none of those. Justify, it isn't the justify. Here we go, align items start. And then we've got a class underneath that, aligns items flex start. I think that's the one that I want. So I'm going to copy that class, jump back over here to my builder, chuck it in, and there we go. See, everything is now aligned at the top. Now my icon box, I didn't want it to be fully rounded. I wanted it to have just a little bit of round corners. And looking at the classes in my icon box here, I can see that there's a class called rounded-full. I went back to my cheat sheet and I looked for rounded. What do they do? Oh, the border radius. Okay, border radius, we've got a bunch of different rounded, top, bottom, left, right, and a different amount that it rounds it by. So I'm using rounded.full. You can see that that makes it pretty much the maximum possible rounded. I probably just want a normal rounded class here. So I'm going to take that, jump back over to my builder, get rid of the rounded.full, and then apply just the rounded class. There we go, that looks pretty good. Now I want the icon to be my primary color instead of the default neutral that's on here. So if we look into this, you can see that there's a text neutral 900, and then in dark mode, text white, which are being applied. And what that means is in dark mode, it applies one color, and then in normal light mode, it applies the other color. So I'm gonna get rid of both of these because for this case, I want both of them to be the same color. And I'm going to then apply primary color class. If I was looking for text classes, I could go back onto the cheat sheet, find text. Let's see if we can find it quickly on here. Text, there we go. Got text-color. See, there's all the different colors available for the text. The only ones that they don't list are our custom into ones, which is what we use for our primary colors and our neutral colors. So I'm going to go back over to my template here, and I'm going to follow the same structure that was in the cheat sheet. So it's text dash, and then the color, blue, red, white, yellow. For our case, it's primary. So we're just going to do P. And then what shade of that primary color do I want to use? I want to use the brightest, which is dead in the middle, 500. So text dash P dash 500. And then on dark mode, I want dark also to be text dash P dash 500. And customizing dark mode items is as simple as that. You just put dark, semicolon, followed by the actual class, and that will apply it in dark mode. Continuing down, I've then got my headings here that are a little bit too big and also not quite the right font weight. So again, I'm going to customize those. If I jump back to my cheat sheet, I'm going to look for font size. Here we go, font size. See, there's a bunch of different font sizes. I want the base font size for this one. So I'm just going to use here, text-base, jump back over to my page, chuck in text-base, and I can see that there's still a text-LG, which was pre-applied from the template. I'm going to get rid of that one. So it's now the same size of the font, but I want it to stand out a little bit more. So I want to make the font black, which is the highest weight of a font. So if I was to go back to my cheat sheet, I'm going to look for font weight, font-black, which is the heaviest font weight. So I'll go back to my page here, chuck in font-black, apply. See, it's applied the black. It's a little bit too heavy, so I'm gonna get rid of it, and I might go with, instead of the black, go with something a little bit lighter. Maybe the bold would be a good one here. So again, I'm gonna select that, chuck it in, font-bold. That looks good. Now I'm going to check it on my different device sizes, and we're pretty sweet for that first section there. Okay, now say I wanted to expand this. I'm going to get rid of the other two, and I'm just going to duplicate my one another 5 times because I want 6 features. Now, if I wanted to customize some of these features to appear differently on mobile or differently on desktop, I can use some of the screen size classes to specify which size it should be applied to. Now, something that's important to keep in mind is Tailwind is designed to be mobile first, unlike many of the frameworks that you may be used to, which are usually designed to be desktop first. This means is when you create a variable that applies to that size and all of the sizes above, instead of the more traditional being it only applies to the sizes below. as an example of this, if we select the grid, you can see that it's got a grid class, which applies to mobile and everything above. You can see there's a custom class for medium devices, MD, and above that makes it 3 columns. So you always specify what you want for the larger devices instead of specifying what you want for the smaller devices. This is part of what makes the framework mobile first, because we're always thinking first, what will it look like on mobile, and then adjusting it for larger devices. Now let's say I wanted to have a 2-column grid on mobile instead of no columns like I have at the moment. I could just apply grid-cols-2, which is a utility class that applies the 2 columns, hit enter, and then when I go check my mobile screen size, you can now see it's got those 2 columns. That grid column size I found in the cheat sheet as well. If I was to search for grid-cols, see here all of the different grid columns. Now let's just say I wanted the mobile to have 1 column, the tablet to have 2 columns, medium size, so like a laptop to have 3, and then large devices to have 4. How would I do that? Well, I'd go here. Let's get rid of everything that we have here at the moment. So I'm going to first apply the class of grid. That applies grid to all viewport sizes. Then on mobile, I want it to have 1 column. So I'll do grid-cols-1. And you can see it will apply 1 column on mobile. Out of the box, it's 1 column, so you actually don't need the mobile or the 1 column class. But if you wanted to, you could add it here. Then for, let's say, small devices, tablets, I want it to have 2 columns. So I'm going to go sm.grid-cols-2, hit enter. And if I check here, you can see medium devices, it's got 2 columns, small devices, it has 2 columns. Then I want medium devices to have 3 columns. So MD grid-cols-3, enter. Again, sizing it up one more time. You can see now medium devices have 3 columns. And then let's say large devices, I want 4 columns, LG grid-cols-4. Anything that's large and above will always be 4 columns, as you can see here. With the grid system, you can also edit the spacing between the items, and you can edit it for all of the spacing if you want something that's consistent, or you can edit it just for the vertical or the horizontal axis. In this case, I'll give 2 examples. Let's say on medium devices and above, I want there to be much more horizontal spacing. And on mobile devices, I want there to be same spacing between every element. The way I'll do that is MD. So I'm going to start with, the mobile device sizes. So let's go gap dash, let's start with an 8 and see how that goes. That looks pretty good. So consistent spacing on the X and the Y axis across all device sizes. But on large devices, I want extra horizontal spacing. So I'm going to go LG to target large devices and above, gap, which is the gap class, and then I'm going to go Y, which is the Y axis. Then let's say we want it to be 16. Hit enter. There we go. You can see it's adjusted the spacing on large devices only to be bigger between the different rows. If I was to switch back to mobile, it has that consistent 8 pixels or 8 variant of spacing. We've got a little bit away from what we wanted to create with our original template here. So I'm just going to remove everything that we just built out and go back to our reference design. There we go. So you can see it was 2 rows, 3 columns, and it looks like equal spacing between each of them. And then as we drag it smaller, it stays pretty consistent until it gets to mobile, and then it resizes it so it's on a single column and multi-rows. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to specify from medium devices and above, I'm gonna do grid dash cols dash 3. It's our 3-column grid. And I want consistent same spacing between each of our elements, regardless of the size. I'll just do gap dash 8, hit enter, and I'm good to go. If I then check mobile, you can see it's just that single grid, single column, because we didn't specify anything to be applied below the medium device size. All right, so we're getting a little bit closer. If we go back to our page, have a quick look. Got all of our different elements there. Oh, lost a section. There we go. The only thing that I think we're missing is the background color of our icons on light and dark mode. So let's just have a look at how things appear as they are. Open this up. You can see the dark is very dark. The background of sort of the card icons are a little bit lighter, but I might try that a tad lighter again. And the spacing's actually a little bit tight, so I might make the spacing between each of them a little bit bigger. And then on light mode, I'm quite happy with the colors. I just want to add some more spacing, I think. So heading back to my page, I'm going to start off up here, and I'm going to give this intro section a larger margin below it. So I can see here I've got MB-16. Get rid of that and replace it with MB-24. Oh, no. If I can spell correctly, MB-24. There we go. And I'm going to change my grid gap from 8 to 16. There we go. And then for the card, I wanted to test a lighter color, dark mode. So looking at this, do I have background color? I do. You can see it has dark BG-N-800. So let's try a shade lighter. Dark BG-N-700. And we're going to save that and see what it looks like now. So that makes it super obvious. It might actually be a little bit too obvious to my taste. So I might revert it back to what we had before, which was dark BG-N-800, and enter that. The last thing that I want to do is customize these icons. And you'll notice all the icons use SVG images instead of icons, and that's so we can use our utility classes to style them, but also so your users don't need to load an entire icon library every time they're visiting your website. So I'm going to use an icon library called Hero Icons. Now, Hero Icons are built by the same guys who made Tailwind. They're a great free icon kit, and they work pretty much flawlessly with any Tailwind config. But I have used other icon libraries like Font Awesome, which work pretty well as well. Now let's just pick out a couple of icons that we want to switch around. I will pick, let's say we want this expanding one. I'm going to copy the SVG, jump back onto our page, paste that in. What else might we go with? The closing thing. Let's do that for the next one. Paste that in there. And let's say the $sign for the last one. Good example. Paste that one in there. And you can see it automatically picks up the right size as well as the right color because we had them defined earlier on through our utility classes. That's pretty much it. I'm going to save that. And I'm just going to add maybe a last call to action at the bottom. It's a button, and I'll do that outside of the grid. So I'll just add here a button. I'm actually going to wrap the button, with a div as well. And I'll start by giving the button a class of btn just btn, actually, just our normal button class. And then I'm going to center it just with a text-center, the parent. And I might add some extra margin at the top. So MT for margin top. Again, I'm quite familiar with all the classes now, but if you weren't sure of the different margins, you can just search margin and you can see all of the different margin options. So M for margin, T for top, and then whatever number or variable we want behind it. So let's say we do MT dash 32. That adds a significant amount of space. If there was an exact pixel amount that I wanted to use instead of one of the fluid spaces, I could also do that. And I could get rid of that empty class and do something along the lines of empty dash, and then in normal brackets, just enter a variable. So I could do empty dash 200 pixels, for example, hit enter, and you could see it's applied 200 pixels to the margin class. That's a bit much. I'm going to go back to what I had before, which was empty. I think I said 32. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go and check it once again on the front end. All right, I've got my button. That looks pretty good. And if we shrink this down to a mobile view, everything's pretty consistent. I'm quite happy with that. I might just make the features section at the top a little bit dark. Actually, no, I'm quite happy with that. That looks pretty sweet. All right, and that is more or less how you use utility classes with Bricks Builder or any other builder and into components. Now, you can still use the default Bricks Builder styles, but anything you do in the Bricks Builder panel won't be passed through the worker or the JIT engine, so you won't benefit from that extra page load or that extra speed. Just be careful as well when you are editing classes or you are using the Bricks panel to make sure that you're not accidentally editing one of the utility classes. It's possible that you've got a utility class selected and then you apply different styles to that. That is going to apply those styles to every other utility class. So keep that in mind. Where possible, just use utility classes. It does take a little bit to get used to. Probably give yourself about a month to learn it. But the naming makes quite a lot of sense and you'll pick it up quite quickly because it's more or less the same across all the classes when you're looking at variables between sizes or angles. If you were to say margin at the top, M for margin, T for top, dash, whatever size. If you wanted padding bottom, it would be P for padding, B for bottom, dash, whatever size. Same would apply for like the border radius. You could do border dash T or border dash B, and it'll apply for top or bottom, or border dash X or Y for the top and bottom or left and right, and so on and so on. Yeah, so give yourself a little bit of time to learn and figure out the utility classes. You will notice that once you have started to pick them up, it's way faster to build pages out because you're no longer just clicking through different elements inside of the builder to find the right toggle to change. And you can now also apply multiple utility classes at the same time. So if I use as an example here, a bit of a crazy example, I wanted mt-48 and then let's say padding left dash 24 and then bg dash blue dash 500. I can just type them all out, hit enter, and they get automatically applied to what I was using. That's a little bit of a crazy application, so I'm just going to get rid of what I just applied. That's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, either in the comments or jump over to the community. You can ping me there directly. Online most of the time, have some weird hours, but more than happy to help, and I really do enjoy the engagement time with the community. That's it for utility classes. I'll catch you in the next one.